Hi, I'm Frank Rocco, and you're listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I've got Frank Rocco. He's a professional fashion photographer. Hey Frank, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Thank you for coming on the Us People podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh no, you're welcome. So let's get straight into it. So you're based in New York, is that
Correct.
correct? Yeah?
Yes.
And so how long have you been a fashion photographer for? And what actually got you into fashion photography?
Um, I guess I really started shooting more fashion than portraits just at the end of the 90s, so a little over 20 years
Cool.
ago.
Oh wow, cool. Okay. No, that's cool. And what has been the best part about you being a fashion photographer? Why didn't you go into something else? Why was it just fashion that you went into?
So to be honest, I love
Yeah.
shooting almost everything.
Okay.
I love taking pictures. There's nothing I don't like shooting.
Yeah.
Um, the reason I really love fashion photography is that more than anything else, more than any other aspect, except maybe still life,
Yeah.
you really get to play with light,
That's true. Yeah.
and that's really my main interest is playing with light and being able to be um, experimental and doing things that you wouldn't do if you're shooting a portrait, a corporate portrait, or even just a a headshot, or even if it's somebody interesting that wants something a little different, it's not going to be that different. Whereas
Yeah, that's
if
true.
if you're shooting fashion, you get to play with light, and you show a model a picture with some weird lighting, some weird angles, some weird anything,
Yeah.
and usually they're like, oh wow, that's cool. Oh, a model with a unique nose will give you a profile,
That's
whereas
true.
regular people are like, oh no, this is my good side. No, no, don't shoot that. Models are like, oh great, yeah, that's fantastic. Oh, I've told this story a couple of times, but it's one of the ones that exemplifies it. We didn't end up doing this, but I was on a shoot. Um, so this one I was brought into. So the stylist and the makeup artist were already part of the team,
Yep.
and the stylist, who was also kind of directing the shoot. And this was for a brand, but for a magazine. And we wanted to make the model look like an alien, and they said,
Okay.
oh, we want to make you look like an alien. Can we shave off your eyebrows? Now we
Ooh.
didn't do it. We didn't do it,
Oh.
but she considered
Oh. She
it.
actually
So
considered it.
she thought about it for a second, and then she was like, well, no, I have other shoots, and who knows how long it's going to take your eyebrows to grow back.
True.
So she didn't do it, and we actually ended up using a glue stick in Photoshop, and we did make her look like an alien with no eyebrows.
Cool.
But we did it all without shaving her eyebrows.
Was there ever a time when you said to yourself that you wanted to be something else other than a photographer? So was photography your main goal always? Was it always your main passion? Or was there anything else that you said you wanted
um
to go into?
no, I kind of fell into it. Out of college, I had a corporate job. No, I shouldn't even say corporate. It was actually for the city of New York, but it was a desk job. It was a 9 to 5 job. And
Ah,
when I started it, I was happy. The people were cool. It was fun. I wore a suit every day. Not that I can't even imagine that self now. But eventually it changed, and I needed to get out of it. And I was pursuing, I shouldn't even say a career in music because that's hard to even pursue, but I was in an original music band, and I had a band together, and I was writing music, and we were playing out.
yeah.
But the goal with that was not really making music.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not really making money. It was making music. It wasn't really making money. And the two guys, it was just three of us, and one of them was already married, and one of them was going to he was looking to get married,
Yeah.
and the girlfriend and wife were like, well, you got to make money. You have to go do, be in a wedding band or something. And that was the last thing I wanted. And I don't think they really wanted it.
Yeah.
Um, and they both ended up doing, various different things. And I think they both still play. I know one of them definitely still plays. Uh, but it was really hard to keep together a band. Even at 24 years old, it was hard to keep a band
Oh,
together
wow.
that, and I was like, wow, we're really old. When it was 15, it was easy to do it for no money. At
Yeah.
24, it already became hard to do it for no money. And you get a little bit of money at the gig from the door, but it would be gas money at best.
Yeah.
So I even it kind of photography kind of took the place of that passion, because it ended up being such an all-encompassing thing. When I had the 9 to 5 job, I could come home and play music and write music, and
Mhm.
photography was a hobby. But I didn't think I could do either one of those really full time. Um, but this, as the story goes, after I should have left that city job in 1 year.
Yeah.
It took me 3 years to leave, and at the end of
Oh,
two,
wow. Was it
yeah,
because you were comfortable, or was it because it was just there and it was money coming in?
I really liked the steady money coming in, and I
Okay.
still, now I teach, and I get that little tiny bit of steady money coming in, and it's still good. Um, but no, that was a fine thing. But when I joined, everybody was happy to be there. By the time I left that office, everybody was miserable being there. Um, and I should have left after a year. After 2 years, I was like, okay, I have to get out of here. And I told my boss I was going to quit when the summer came. So 2 years
Yeah.
was came up in like January. I said, when the summer comes, I'm giving you 6 months notice. I'm going to quit, and I'm going to travel Europe. And when my money runs out, I'm going to just find whatever job I can find.
Fair
And
enough.
and my boss said, don't quit. We'll give you 4 weeks off in the summer, which nobody got 4 weeks off in a row, time, whether they had the time or not. And I didn't have the time.
Whoa.
I probably had close to 3 weeks, but I took, a week unpaid. But I got 4 weeks in a row, and I went to Europe, and I had a
Yeah.
great time. And then I came back, and I had a job that I still hated. Uh, so,
Ah, okay.
so, so the next 6 months I spent looking for a new job, and I was doing all sorts of interviews, sales. One was selling fake perfume, like selling perfume that was like imitation of the real brands. I, I
Okay.
I didn't take that job, but it was that's how desperate I was to just leave. And my boss wasn't going to let me go if I didn't have a job. She would have just continued to say, no, stay until you find that job. Like she liked what I did, and liked me, and was happy with me, as long as she wouldn't have let me just leave.
Yeah.
Um so I finally found a job that wanted to start me, the next Monday. I went there, and I said, well, I can't leave. I have to at least give, even though I've given almost a year's notice, I still
Yeah.
have to give another 2 weeks notice. And I did. And it was one of the crappiest photography jobs ever.
Uh-oh.
And I stayed there for about 6 weeks, if that, or 5 or 6 weeks. And then got a slightly less crappy photography job, and I've been getting less crappy photography jobs ever since.
That's not a bad thing.
No, and,
So
and it's always my goal to get better and better. I shouldn't say they're crappy anymore. I should get better and better photography jobs all along.
so what's been your most inspiring job that you've had so far?
Oh, that's tough. I always like the editorial. I mean, asking a model if she can, shave her eyebrow. That's fun. Doing that, and especially, and it was with one of those same people that, it's another story. It's another one of the stories when people say, "Oh, I want to be a model," and I say, "Are you sure about that?" Because
Mhm.
here's what happens, and this was I was suffering. We were supposed to be shooting in a hotel, in the lobby and one of the rooms of a hotel,
Yeah.
and this was for people that sold handbags, really,
Okay.
like, really nice handbags. Um, but it was all on the model and stuff. No still life or anything. Just, so it was a fashion shoot with handbags, and it was, January, February. It was really freaking cold. It was blistery, horrible cold, but it was a bright sunny day.
Yeah.
There was no plan to shoot outdoors. But then they said, "Hey, it's beautiful out. Can we go outside?"
Uh-oh.
And I had no plan of going outside. I still had long johns just to get there because it was that cold that just getting there, I should have been wearing extra layers of pants. So I'm wearing jeans and long johns, and is that a term in England? Do we say long johns?
Yeah, we say long johns here
Yeah,
too.
okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. So I'm wearing jeans and long johns and boots and um, a t-shirt, a sweater, a fleece, and a
Wow.
winter coat and gloves and a hat and a neck warmer. And I'm out
It
there
was
shooting
cold.
and I'm fucking freezing. Can I say fucking?
Of
Are
course
we
you
okay?
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
You
So
are.
I'm fucking freezing. And there are the models. The guys wearing, just a thin layer of suit pants and
What?
whatever, and no undershirt, a regular dress shirt and a tie. It was like a suit, kind of look. And there's the girl wearing a dress with no stockings, bare legs, and they're over there and they're making it look like they're not freezing. I just can't be the wimp and I can't say, I have to go in, my fucking fingers are freezing. So I'm not holding out, but in my head I'm just going, oh my God, when are we going inside? How are they doing this? And sometimes that's what it's like being a model. And
Yeah.
I do not envy them at all.
Oh, man.
But that's always fun. It's always fun to shoot editorial. I love shooting, guerrilla style. Just
Yeah.
let's find a spot. Um, I used to have a van. Now I have a minivan because
Oh, cool.
shit happens. But I had a van, and we would pile people into the van and find a spot in Manhattan. And in Manhattan, you can find it. It looks so different in so many different
Yeah.
places. So
Yeah.
you can pull up to an area and turn your camera this way, that way, and you have four different shots. And we would just drive to a spot and do makeup and hair and stuff in the van and just run out and shoot. And sometimes people would kick you out, but most of the time the most you'd have to deal with is people driving by and catcalling or whistling
Mhm.
or just saying being like, oh my God, what are you doing, you're so beautiful, to the models. But as long as there's a big crowd, you can be like, hey, thanks, see ya.
See you later.
But yeah, that's always the most fun, much more fun than a studio shoot. But I love studio shoots because I can really control the light and it's
Yeah.
not running around and playing with things as much. um, but I really, the most exciting is always doing something on the street.
That's true. No, I love it. Tell us a little bit about how it is to be the director or one of the directors at the SM, was it ASMP, I should
Yes,
say.
yes. Originally, it was the SMP. It was just the
I thought
Society of
so.
Magazine
Yeah, because
Photographers.
I remember it changed.
Well, that change happened right at the beginning. So in
Okay.
1940, I'm drawing a blank on the year, but it's this year is the 75th anniversary. So
Yeah.
whatever 2020 minus 75 is, so 40. Actually, yeah, it was the end of 2019, so
Yeah.
1944. So it only was the SMP for a couple of years, then it changed to the ASMP, which
Yeah.
M stood for magazine, and
Yeah.
then in the 80s they changed it to media because they
Yeah.
just wanted to encompass more, um,
Which
a
makes
broader
sense in a
spectrum of
way.
photographers. Yeah. But being on the national board is rewarding. We
Mhm.
get to kind of steer the ship, a lot more than what I did before. That was I was the president of the New York chapter for 5.5 years.
Oh, cool.
Um, so that is a lot more work than being
How was
on the
that?
national
So
board.
tell us a little bit about that as well. Yeah, I'm interested in that one too.
That the New York board does a lot. They still do a
Okay.
lot. They do portfolio reviews that are free for members. So especially
Yeah.
when you're doing a lot of free events, it's a
Yeah.
lot more work. Putting together even the parties, putting together a party that should cost $20,000 or $30,000 to do
Yeah.
for like 3 or 4 thousand, is
Ooh.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
But we did it, and they're still doing it, and they're still doing great things.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing to have a personal. We're doing everything online now, and there's a lot of online resources, more and more, and that's always going to be there. That's going to be the trend going forward. COVID-19 or not.
Yeah.
But doing the personal thing, it's also important. My personal example is, if I hire an assistant, I'd like to hire an assistant that I've met. It's
Fair enough.
there are just things that I can't do on a phone call or online or seeing an email, because I don't really care what their resume is, right?
Yeah.
If you show up, I assisted for years. If you show up as an assistant, you're expected to know what you're doing, unless you say, I'm new and I'm learning or whatever. But you're expected to know what you're doing. You're expected to show up on time. You're expected to be reliable, not steal your photographer's clients. You're expected to do all that, right?
Right.
Um, but the things that so on that level, all assistants and even photographers, if it's great when you're hired because somebody loves what you do. They're like, I love
Yeah.
what you did with that thing. Can you do other things like that? Or, they love your style. But that's more rare than we need this shot and anybody can shoot this thing, this picture, this whatever. Can you come and do it? And then it's a matter of, who do you want to be in a car with for a few hours? Who do you want to
Yeah.
eat lunch with? Who do you want to whatever? And for me, hiring an assistant, it's who doesn't reek of cigarette smoke?
Oh,
Who am I going to
yeah.
sit in a car with that doesn't need cigarette breaks? Who can I have a conversation with? It's not anything about, once in a while. I mean, I don't do a lot of corporate stuff. But I've heard the thing of, who's going to show up and doesn't have a million piercings all over their face and, body and whatever. And then sometimes, you're doing something that's, really like crazy off the wall fashion, and you want the
Yeah.
person with
Yeah.
so there's that, also, but that's never as important as, does the person seem like a normal person? Do they not seem like a serial killer? Or, are they going to do all those things that they said they're going to do, like show up, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that
So,
makes
so yeah, so all those events that are in person, I value them way more than the online stuff.
fair
Um,
enough.
but the online stuff is more and more necessary, even after we get through this.
Yeah. How has it been for you being inside as a photographer and being, self-employed as a photographer? How has it been for you?
So I'll separate the financial from the how is it being inside. I have a little bit of cabin fever. So the last time I went out with friends in Manhattan. So I live in Queens. The last time
Okay.
I was in Manhattan was March 11th, and they were just starting to talk about, hey, it's coming to New York.
Yeah.
Um, on the next day, on the 12th, so on the Thursday, I met a few friends in a Greek cafe locally.
Yeah.
And then the Friday the 13th was like, no, now everybody stay home.
Wow.
And I joked about it because somebody said, hey, how are you doing? And I said, well, I've only been in for one day and I already have cabin fever. So, yeah. uh, I have it, but I'm trying to do things where I'm, even if it's just driving somewhere or doing stuff, but I'm doing very little of it. Even my shopping has been more online, and
Yeah.
my local produce store is open 24 hours, so I can go in the middle of the
Oh,
night when there's no one there.
yeah, that's a good
Um,
thing.
and but part of the cabin fever thing, I think, doesn't even affect me as much as it affects some other people.
Yeah.
I love being social. I love seeing people, but like most photographers, we joke about it. We ASMP New York used to have an event called Get Out of Your Cave, and we got a little flack for
I
that
like
because
the name.
well, people hated that. Some people hated the name. One of our like constant reviewers and photo critics, Stella, said, please change the name of that. But Get Out of Your Cave was literal. It was like, we spend time. And for me, my home office is in my basement.
Yeah.
So there's no daylight. The only light
Ah.
is coming off my computer.
So you
Um,
go in dark and you come out dark.
yeah, it's and but that's always peppered by going out on shoots, so I
Yeah.
could be out all day long. And even just meeting days, even just days where I'm in Manhattan going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting and getting
Yeah.
home or whatever. And then, if I spend the next day all indoors, it's not a big deal. And now it's just been constantly, almost constantly, all indoors. So,
Oh
so
wow.
so yeah, so it's a little tough, especially when you start realizing that the dates that they're talking about getting back to quote normal,
Mm.
um, might not really be happening for maybe another year. Um,
Yeah,
it might not be till next summer that it's really back to normal when we can hug people again. You know, they just
yeah.
canceled a folk festival that I go to every summer, and that would have happened in the middle of August.
I think
Uh,
everything in
yeah.
London's been cancelled, like literally everything. There is nothing that is due to start until 2021 at least. And that's
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
There is
I
everything
mean,
has been cancelled.
my only two gigs on my calendar right now are in December. So
Oh wow.
we'll see if that
We'll
happens.
see. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, and one is an event, and the other is actually nothing to do with photography. I'm still considering it a date, though. It's actually road managing a friend's production. So it's some audio visual stuff, and I might even video. Do a video recording and make a
Yeah.
little documentary movie or something. But both of those are in December, and both of those involve places with lots of people. So I guess there's a good chance they don't happen.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Which one person can you say has supported you through your passion in doing photography? If there's anyone out there, it could be a friend, it could be a colleague, it could be someone that you've worked with in the past. Anybody who has supported you while you've been doing photography that you can say, "Oh my gosh, I owe that gratitude to them."
um, there's a lot of people. When my mother was alive, she was always okay with whatever decisions I made. Never
Yeah.
second guessed my. If she did, she never made it. She never was vocal about. Wait, you're leaving a city job. You're leaving a steady paycheck and a desk job to go maybe not make money. And
Hey,
I have a friend that still hassles me about it. He says, "You left."
seriously?
Oh, he goes, "You left a city job? How could you have left a city job?" And I joke with him that I probably would have killed myself by now had I stayed in the same
I
job.
was gonna say, I
Um,
was gonna actually say to you, would you? I think number one thing in life is to be happy, and even if you don't have as much money as you would if you were working in a day to day job,
right.
happiness
Yeah.
counts a lot
Yeah.
more.
Yes. It's important to not even just do what you love, but do things that you can at least wake up in the morning and say, "Oh, I'm looking forward to that," even if you have days that you're not looking forward to.
Yeah,
I have days of certainly of editing that I don't look forward to.
tell me
Um,
about it.
yeah, and lately I've been doing more video editing, which like audio editing,
Mhm.
same thing, has this component of time to it, and you can't do so when I'm editing photos. I can make phone calls. I can talk with friends and relatives and do things. I can have music on. I could
Yep.
have the TV on in the background. When I'm editing video or audio, no. I have to listen to that thing, and I've been doing some stuff for a friend of mine, and doing some music videos.
Yeah.
So I whether and I like the songs. The guy does some really great original stuff, and he just did a song by Janice Ian. So luckily, they've been songs that I like. But even
Wow.
when it's a song you like, you're listening to that fucking song over and over and over again.
For hours. For
Yes.
hours.
Yep.
Are there any
Yeah.
photographers that you admire who are out there who've inspired you to do what you
I,
do?
I don't think there were any that inspired me to say become a photographer. Early on. I think
Mhm.
I really was. I loved the science of it and the
Yeah.
surprise and the whole darkroom thing and all of that. And I didn't think I could do it as a career. Um,
Yeah.
I think one of the guys who inspired me way back then, or soon after that, or at least after I started really paying attention to fashion, and I saw him speak, not quite that far back, but now it's probably almost 20 years ago, was Sante Dorazio. Um,
Oh.
and he was a New York guy, a Brooklyn guy
Yeah.
that and his stories are great. He's a funny guy. His stories are that he got into shooting underwear and nudes because he could not afford to hire a stylist or get the clothes, and that's how he got into it. And he also just one of his stories is that every model that comes, or every famous person, like you see a lot of famous people shot
Yeah.
by him for their nudes, and he would just ask everybody. And a lot of times the answer with women was that they had a boyfriend or a husband. And he goes, well, then I just wait that out. And, 6 months, a year, 2 years later, they'd be in my studio running around naked. And it's like, yeah, because especially in Hollywood, that changes so often. But he's especially his attitude and his pictures are amazing. And he just, he never stops shooting. He runs after his people and just keeps on shooting. So I've always admired him for that. There's plenty of photo people who do their things that and I guess I've gone through phases. I read the zone system stuff when I still have a
Yeah.
dark room,
You
but
still have one?
I don't use it. It exists, and it's
Oh,
storage, and I haven't run the water in years. It would probably be so rusty even through the filters as it came out now. Um, but but I got into the whole Ansel Adams thing and the zone
yeah.
system and pre-exposing my film, and I still own my view camera.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
not that it's done anything than other than sit there. My Hasselblad lenses I now put on my digital cameras, but I really got into that. I love some people for their lighting and some people for their nature and things that I don't even shoot. I don't shoot nature. Um,
Okay.
I tend to do it only if I'm teaching people to shoot because I do, besides teaching at FIT and a few years ago, Manhattan College and Harlem School of
Yeah.
the Arts, I also teach photo safaris. So I go around
Oh,
the city to different locations. And when I'm doing Zoom, my background would normally be one of those pictures. So,
fair
so,
enough.
but I don't do that much of it on my own. I do some of it. Once in a while, I'll be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to bring my super wide in and shoot some really cool stuff today because especially if I have to be there anyway.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, but but a lot of it is stuff that I'm forced to do because I'm there showing other people how to do it. So then I bring my camera and I shoot it anyway. I think I've had a lot of influences and a lot of people that have supported me. I have a friend. There's one friend that I still assist.
Yeah.
Um, I got a lot of hand me down equipment from him, including my first
Okay.
my first three digital cameras, um, because he was sponsored by one. I won't. It doesn't matter what company, but he was sponsored by
Yeah.
one of the companies, and that's how I got into them because he was like, oh, and actually it turned out I was assisting him, and this was when I was like full time assisting him and other people, and
Yeah.
he got a call and he said they want to give me a camera. And I was like, "What do you mean you don't want it? Of course, take it. Give it to me." And he asked me he goes, "Well, when's your birthday?" And it turned out to be the same birthday as his wife. He's like, "No,
Oh
nobody's
wow.
born on that day." And it's me and his wife and the Dalai Lama and W. So George W.
Um,
Bush, which we're not really proud of, and Sylvester Stallone. Um, but anyway, so then he actually took that camera for himself and gave me the one that they had given him in the past. And then eventually I got that one that he was on the phone when they gave him, and then eventually I got another one, and then that. So yeah, he even lighting equipment or everything that he's ever been like, I'm trying to get rid of this and it wasn't worth selling, or it wasn't, or sometimes just that he would ask me before that. So I've gotten a lot of support from him. Um, and he turned, from assistant, he turned into one of my good friends. And
yeah.
I still see him and his wife. And one of the reasons I still will assist him is because when we work together, it's kind of a hangout day. We all
Yeah.
do everything, and we all, it's not. I'm not
It just
really
feels
being treated like an
natural.
assistant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one of the times I get to hang out with them.
Oh,
Yeah.
fair enough. Where did you get your first break, Frank? Where did you get your first break in photography?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't know if I'd call anything a break. I mean, a lot of it is, tenacity and luck. And I think I've gotten a lot of little breaks. But I was working as a photographer full time. This was after I left the city job when I wanted to attend schools to use their dark rooms. So
Yeah.
before I built a dark room, I first went to a school in Queens that has a really good photography program, and it was really close to my
Okay.
house. And then I had gone through and then I also just liked taking classes. I was like, well, it forces me to do things. It gives me
Yeah.
assignments that are different than what I would normally be doing
Yeah.
every day as I'm shooting. Right. Because you shoot, if you shoot for someone else, especially, you end up shooting the same thing a lot of times every day. Right.
Yeah.
So I was doing that. And then I was like, oh, I get to do this other stuff and meet new people and do other things. And that's even when I first got the interest in, hey, maybe I can shoot fashion. Um,
Yeah.
but then I went through every course that they had. And then I said to a friend, who is in the fashion world, um, but she had gone to FIT, and I said, but I ran out of every class that they had, and she said, well, why don't you go to my school? And I said, well, okay, well, I'll go look it up, and I looked up FIT, and then I started taking photography classes there. Actually, they didn't at the time, and still don't have a course called fashion photography. Although
Yeah, that's
I might
true.
propose one. Um,
That's a good idea.
but but I started taking classes there, and one of the guys, the guy who worked in the cage, Alex Kao, um, said, "Hey, do you want to assist me? We're going out to Hamptons to shoot this model." And the only thing he needed me to do was be fast at loading film. And he's
Fair
like,
enough.
Can you load 220 film fast?" And I said, "I think so." And then I did the first two, and he's like, he goes, "Yeah, you're very fast." And so basically, I went out there, loaded film from all day. I didn't even have to like hold a light or anything. It was just like keeping track of film. Um, Loading film and keeping track of film, and and that kind of got me thinking, okay, yeah, and I think I now I encourage a lot of students to assist, because a lot of times they think that they should finish their career in
Yeah.
school and then they should go assist, and the answer is no. There's a lot of jobs out there where somebody doesn't need an experienced assistant. They don't, and I encourage them to get a separate card that says photography assistant on it.
Yeah.
Because if they give me a card that says photographer and I put it down for 2 weeks, I'm not going to remember that they're an assistant. And
Yeah.
this goes for every
That's true.
photographer that they meet. But if you're a student, if you're a photography student, get out there and start assisting now.
Yeah.
And just tell people, look, I don't have that much experience, but sometimes I just need somebody who knows how to drive a car, or not even. I'm driving a car and they just need to sit there with my equipment while I go park, and then we need to walk in together because I don't want to use the cargo entrance. I don't want to use the freight elevator and wait.
Yeah.
I want to walk in the front door and make it look like suitcases, so I need another person. Um,
That's
and
fair
and
enough.
and sometimes I've hired my own students, and sometimes they're the best assistants. Um, Even more than, and I'm used to doing a lot of stuff myself. So sometimes they're doing stuff, and I'm
I
like,
think a
oh,
lot of
yeah.
photographers are used to doing stuff themselves. I think it's just one of those. Do you find sometimes that being a photographer is slightly lonely because you're so used to doing everything yourself, or do you actually embrace the fact that you're by yourself?
That's both. I think that's why we do the get out of your cave.
Yeah.
Um, I went on a meeting one time with a bunch of photographers, and this guy wanted to set up some new headshot thing. And he got together a bunch of people that sometimes shoot headshots. And then we sat around the table, and the thing, as far as I know, never happened. But sitting around the table, one person said, the best thing about this is I got to meet all you guys, and I got to meet a bunch of other photographers because I just work alone. And
Yeah.
they actually went around the table, and the guy who was starting it went first, and I was sitting next to him, and he said, this is great, I got to meet all you guys. And then they went around the table opposite, my direction, and everyone else was like, yeah, I know one other photographer, yeah, I'm friends with one guy I went to school with, I'm friends with one lady that I worked for, I'm friends with somebody that I used to assist, whatever. And it went all around. And then I said, no, I said, I'm very involved with a trade organization, ASMP. So I know, hundreds, thousands of photographers, easily hundreds, that I could call up and
Yeah.
ask, hey, did you ever deal with this situation or this company or whatever? So I think a lot of us miss that now. I had a meeting with, there's another organization that does pretty much the same thing that ASMP does, APA, which is
Yeah.
the American Society. No, it's I'm sorry, the American Photographic Artist, and they do a thing, and ASMP is doing similar things, but I just happened to get invited to the APA one last night, which is the Sunday night check-in. because we all miss talking to other photographers and talking to other people and talking about stuff
It's
and
true.
whatever. So I think there are lonely times, and there are times when you're just working in your cave alone. And I have a brain trust through ASMP, and we meet monthly. And now we're doing it
Yeah.
on Zoom, but normally we all travel to one spot and we all meet there. And we're supposed to be doing something like ask a question or show your work, or
Yeah.
here are my promises for next month. Here's what I did this month. Here's what I didn't do. It's all about that.
Yeah.
But a lot of times people just come out and go, I've got nothing. I just wanted to get out of my cave and hang out with you people. So we do experience the loneliness, but I think we have a lot of answers to make it more less lonely.
That's a fair point. What camera do you use, Frank? What camera would you say is your
See,
main
I was
camera
trying to
that you
avoid
use?
that because I'm
I
not I'm
know, but
not
it was
I'm not
coming
I'm not
up,
a I'm not a person that thinks it relies on the gear. Um, but
which is good in a way.
yeah,
It's
but
good.
I'll tell you because somebody asked last night. I did show one of the videos that I shot for my friend doing music, and they said, "Well, what did you use to shoot
Yeah.
that?" And almost everybody in this meeting, one of them was talking about their Canon issues, but almost everybody else is Sony. Um,
Oh,
and not me.
okay.
I am shooting with an Olympus.
Ah, you're
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
different. Okay, it's not bad at all. So, what's your go-to lens?
So my
What's
go-to
your main go-to
lens,
lens?
and I've been trying. People have tried to influence me to get the wider aperture lenses or whatever. But my go-to
Yeah.
lens, because of its versatility, is it's an f4. Um, and it is a 14 to 100. So it's not technically a
Okay.
crop sensor because it's built around that system, but it would be
Yeah.
equivalent to a 28 to 200. So
Oh, okay.
I could
That's
shoot
fair
fairly
enough.
wide
Okay.
with it,
Yep.
and actually 14 to 28. Yeah, so I can shoot fairly wide and I can zoom in, and it's my go-to lens for shooting things where I might need some versatility. It's my go-to lens for when I
Mhm.
don't want to change my lenses if I'm in a dusty or sandy or whatever situation,
Yeah,
and it's
environment.
totally my
Yeah.
go-to lens for video. Um,
Ah,
it
okay.
is so versatile that I often don't bring. The only other lens I bring is a normal lens because it's small and sits on my backup camera. So I will bring the one versatile lens, and the backup for that is a normal
Yep.
lens, which on that format is a 25 millimeter.
Have you ever been in a shoot, Frank, and someone's just asked you a really funny question about you being a photographer or your equipment or how you use it? Has anyone ever asked you a question and you turn around and be like, "You're really asking me that question?" Do you have any stories around that?
um, nothing comes to mind. I mean, I do get a lot of, oh wow, like Fashion Week. You're in a, or I'm in on a riser, crammed in with just people everywhere around
Yeah.
you, and there'll be like one other person shooting Olympus. So they're like, oh my god, you're shooting Olympus. What are you shooting with? And whatever. So I get that.
Yeah.
Um, I get I'll shoot some events or something where it's doctors or lawyers being like, oh my god, that's such a great looking camera, that must be a really expensive whatever. um and I think not while I'm shooting, but I think we've all gotten the you must have a really great camera thing. And I think we
Yeah.
all know the story, and I forget who it is, but it's supposedly a true story. It's a famous photographer. Do you know this story where he walks into a party and it
I don't
so
know. Go
so
on, tell me it, and it
okay,
might come
I
back
don't
to
want to
me.
repeat it if everybody listening knows it already, but a famous photographer walks into a dinner party, and the cook
Mhm.
is somebody who's well known as a cook, and as the photographer walks in, she says, "Oh, I love your pictures. You must have a really great camera." So he doesn't say anything, and he at the end of the meal he enjoys everything, and at the end of the meal everybody's saying, oh, it was so great and so great, everything, and he looks up and he says, oh, everything was delicious, everything was fantastic, you must have a really great stove. So it's and I love your I love your laugh.
So oh, thank you. I try to keep it up.
And it's kind of accurate. And you know
Oh,
what? If you're a photographer or if you're a pro photographer, you're probably going to have a good camera because you value your equipment. And if you're a chef,
of
you're
course.
probably going to have a really good set of knives and a really good stove. But if
Yeah,
somebody gave you a shitty set of knives and a crappy stove, you'd probably be able to cook pretty well also.
pretty decent, yeah. But, you make things work. We've all had stuff that we think, "Oh, I wish I had better stuff," but we still had to make do with what we had, and we done quite
Yes.
well with
Yeah.
it. I'm
You
sure
know,
we all
the
have.
thing that always surprises me is, we spend all this money on getting the most crisp lens we can get and the best glass and the best
Mm.
sensor and all this stuff. And then and I mean we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it too. Then we do whatever we can to make our images look like they came from a crappy camera. We put shit in front of the lens, we smear things on the lens, we get a filter that makes everything look
I've
blurry.
done it.
I don't do that much of it because I've seen some stuff that's like, oh my god, and it's kind of what stops me from getting one of the lens baby things because they look like a fun toy, but then I'm like, really? I'm like, do I
Yeah,
want to spend that much time making something that I also can't get back? Like if I do something in Photoshop, I can get it back. I can shoot it crisp and
yeah,
clear and whatever. And yes, I love shallow depth of field and I'll do that. But to really make it look like it's from a toy camera and then I can never change that again. I'm like, I don't know. Do I want to switch back and forth to that lens or shoot those things? And it's a fun experiment. And I think I would if someone gave me one of those lenses, I'd probably be like, okay, yeah, let me go have fun and experiment with it. But I even see video guys. I was shooting a Fashion Week thing, and it was an event. So it was a small fashion show, but it was a singer and it was a whatever. And the guy shooting the video had, he had rigged up something that was putting like a piece of crystal in front of his lens, so he'd get the flare and he'd shoot the crystal and whatever. And I was like, "Are you sure you want to commit to that?" And and I understand his answer was totally reasonable. He did not want to give the client an out. He wanted to shoot it that way so the client couldn't say, "Oh, I love it, but can you do it without that effect?" And then he could say, "No, this is it. This is how it was shot." And I get it.
this is
Yeah,
what you're
I get
getting.
it. But I don't know if I always want to commit to that.
What's the best and worst thing about being a photographer?
Um,
If you had to break it down.
ooh, well, I'll tell the first. Well, the thing that I always get, people always say, "It's so great. You get to do what you want for a living." And
Yeah,
even before any of this happened, or even before things got digital, and my life was a lot easier
yeah,
with a light table and editing with scissors. Even before that, um, but I think more so now, as at least the percentage. I get to do what I want. Well, uh, there's no way to shut that off, so I'm just gonna have to hang up on these people. Oh god, sorry about that.
that's okay.
So the only way, I'm sorry, this the you get to do what you love, what you want, is about 30% of the time if I'm lucky, and about 70% of the time
Okay.
I'm running a business, and I fucking hate it. I hate everything to do with it. I hate the marketing. I hate the meetings. I hate the emails. I hate running a business. I never wanted, I didn't get into it because I was running a business. And actually, my first few jobs were working
Yeah,
for someone else, and I didn't have to run a business. Um, but
yeah.
then I found out that really, if I wanted to shoot what I wanted to shoot, I had to run a
Mhm.
business. And I don't know. I don't know if there's an out to that. I don't know if there's anything, um, unless you get an agent. And I recommend it. If you can get a rep, get a rep. Um, my
Yeah,
uncle, who was a fine art painter, uh, said it like it was easy. He's like, just get an agent. Just get an agent. But it's not that easy to just get it's easier as an actor or a painter to just get an agent or a gallery or whatever to represent you. as a photographer, most reps don't want you until you don't need a rep. You know,
That's true.
yeah,
That's always the
if
case.
you've done all the
Yep.
work and you have house accounts and you've done everything that they should be doing, and then you're just so busy that now you need them to take it over, then it's easy to get a rep. Um, but
See.
I had a rep for about a month that wanted. She was brand new, so she wasn't an established rep, and she was a great salesperson, and I think she really would have been great at it, but she just had too much stuff going on, and she was willing to go and get jobs, and I only needed to give her, and I think it was a low percentage, so I believe it was 20%, whereas most reps now are 25 or
Okay.
30%. um,
Yeah.
and she only wanted 20% of only the jobs that she got me, and she would go and find the work, and she would help do the invoicing, and I would still get the checks and just write her 20% of the of the whole thing afterwards. And it was great, and I would have I she still has one of my books. It's so old now, I don't really want it back. But but that would have been ideal. But she got some other sales job, and she was letting somebody live with her who was out on the street, and she was a bartender, and she had so much else
Okay.
going on. Yeah, if anybody else wants to rep me and have some kind of deal like that and wants to go get me work, I'm in. Um,
You hear that, guys? Frank's giving you an opportunity. Hey, if we can expose that for you, let's do
yeah.
it. So Frank's looking for a rep, and we need to get him a rep. We need a good rep. A rep that won't take try and take more than 30%. How much are we saying? 20% is what you want,
No,
is 20%? You want to give 20%
if
away?
someone, the reasonable, the go-to thing these days for someone that's established and already has the clients is 30%. But
Yep.
if someone wanted to
Okay.
come in and take 20% and they don't have the clients and they just want to try it, then sure, I would try that. You know,
Okay.
um,
There you go, guys. There's an opportunity out
but
there.
I think that's the point where you can just go out and shoot when you have a rep and you're like, okay, they run, but you still need a manager, you still need a production person, and at that point you're so busy that you might just be shooting almost every day. Um, and
True.
there are less and less people I know that are in that situation, sadly. And even
Mm.
people I know that had that situation or had that much work that they could shoot, 5 days a week for most of the year, um, are, now closing their studios, doing other things. And it's one of the reasons why I'm getting my chops up on video editing, because that
Yeah.
seems like it's gonna be a it has yeah,
Another
it has seemed
avenue.
like it's going to be the thing, and we've been more required to do it in the past. But I've never said no. But like this last fashion week, I did a fashion movie. I got a client that said, "Hey, can you shoot these shows?" And I said, "Oh, sure. That's what I look for, is private clients that can hire
Yeah.
me, so I'm not just shooting editorial stuff for Fashion Week." So
Yeah.
it started as 2 shows, and then they said, "Hey, can you shoot video?" And the answer is always yes. And it's like, well, and the budget's going to be this. So then I hired a second shooter to actually shoot the stills while I shot the video. And then it
Fair
turned from
enough.
2 shows into four, and then but they didn't have the budget to really do four, so then I ended up shooting video for those other 2 shows in two different ways. One was I set up a video camera and just shot it while I was shooting, so it was just a still,
Okay.
thing, and that just shot videos on a tripod. And then on the other
Yep.
one, they actually did a dress rehearsal, and I got to shoot the dress rehearsal as the video and shoot the actual show as stills. So that all worked out
Ah.
well, and I love doing that. And if I can do that, there's a nervous part of that, because during Fashion Week, keeping your spot, having the second shooter there to keep your spot while you're shooting backstage is great, because those were for a nail
Yeah.
company, so a lot of it was backstage. So having the second person there really makes a big difference. But even then, they're still calling me up, going, "Hey, there's somebody here who wants us to move 3 inches. Can we do?" And it's like, where do those 3 inches bring us? So you know, uh, there's always a lot of, and if you leave backstage, you might not get into backstage, and they want you to shoot first looks, which means that you're going to be there until the very last second, and then you're going to have to climb over people to try to get
Yeah.
back in and squeeze into some spot that your ass doesn't fit in anymore. Not because you got fatter, but because you were that fat at the beginning of the show, but because the spot got smaller. Um, so you it's very tight, and I can't imagine that that's going to happen even next February. I think that might not happen till a
Yeah.
year from September. The next time we're doing that.
So you're saying a whole year, and September hasn't even come yet.
Right. That I mean, if it'll be amazing if it happens in February. I really don't think
Okay.
it can happen in September. I don't think they're gonna have us all sitting next to each other, inches away from each other's faces. Masks or no masks, it's a tight spot. I mean, the show itself, people are sitting on those little folding chairs that are not big enough for some people's
Yep.
butts already. Um, and then backstage is insanely crowded, and people with the same brushes and in the same doing people's faces, and they're looking at people's faces, doing makeup, doing hair, doing all of that at the same time. I mean, if you look at any of the pictures, and some of them are on Instagram, on my Instagram, of it's a model
Yeah.
with 7 people around her. It's somebody's doing her toes
Yeah.
while somebody's doing her fingernails, while somebody's doing, 2 people are doing her hair, and somebody else is doing her makeup, and somebody is fitting her for something, all at the same time. And then 3 of us are shooting that. I can't imagine that happens in September. So,
What would you say you do, Frank, when you're on a set and you feel uninspired? What do you do to get back to being inspired and bringing out that creativity in you?
um,
Because we've all had that.
I don't know if I ever have that much time to think about that. I
Fair
think
enough. Okay.
if I don't, I think the thing that I would say, that might pop into my head would be, oh, this lighting sucks, or this lighting is boring.
Yeah.
In which case, then I
Yeah.
just change it, right? And in which case, a lot
Yeah.
of times it's like, all right, I know we said we were going to do this way, but everybody turn around. I'm going to the other side, and there's so
Yeah.
many there's so
Yeah,
many
that's fair
things
enough.
I could do like that, and all that time that has been a split second thought, while in my head is going on the things of, am I doing everything right? Am I doing the settings
Yeah.
that I need? Is every camera setting on there still what I always set it to, or would like it to set it to, or what I said I would set it to? And did I say I wanted to shoot this with these settings, this lens, this kind of lighting ratio? Is this going to match the other thing that we shot earlier? Is it, um, and then I'm telling, if I'm lucky enough to have an assistant or two that day, it's remind me that everybody needs to eat, because all of
Yeah.
that has gone out. I'm not, I love to eat, um, and when
We
I'm
all do.
and when you're
I hope so.
assisting, the one thing I've discovered, all you assistants out there, please go out, assist, and learn. It's a great way to learn and work with different photographers. But even when you're on the most interesting shoot ever, it could be, it could be your dream, inspirational photographer shooting the model you've always admired with stylists and makeup. It's still the most boring fucking day ever. And the day seems like it's forever. It's just a long, long day, and you're just like, what little distraction can I have? So you're looking forward to lunch for the break. Not you. You don't. It doesn't matter if you're hungry. You just want the situation to change for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then when you're shooting, I could be shooting, the stupidest thing alone. I could be shooting. I mean, I have actually had this day shooting guitar pedals alone in my studio, and trying to, playing with light and angles, and how can I make another different pedal that looks the same as all the other pedals look a little different, and having the most, and the day flies. because when you're shooting, the thoughts in your head and the
Yeah,
nervousness of what am I doing, whatever, am I getting this right or whatever, make the day fly. So
that's true. That is
so
so true.
there's never a time when I'm just like, oh, I'm uninspired. I don't even think I have that thought of I'm inspired at the time. I think the inspiration comes from, oh, that's really cool. That's a cool looking light or a cool looking angle or a cool looking whatever. And the thought process is always, is it a cool looking thing or a cool looking lighting or a cool looking angle? And if it's not,
Yeah.
then I'm changing it.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
that's yeah.
No, that's fair enough. Was there ever a point in your life where something occurred or something happened and it made you reevaluate your
Every
choices in
everything that happens
every day?
every
Go on, say every day. I knew he was gonna say that. I knew. Everyone says that to me, Savia. This literally every day. I don't know even why you asked the question because it's every
yeah.
day. So
Um,
I will still say,
yeah, there's no one thing. I appreciate the freedom I have. I like not being a 9 to 5er. Um,
yes,
but my choices also mean that I I drive old shitty cars. I own 3 vehicles, so maybe
okay. What are your three
my
vehicles? Go on, tell me, because
I've
you've got
got
three.
3.
Hey,
So two are on the road, one is off the road, and I was gonna get it back on the road this spring, but it seems like it's not really worth it this
yeah.
spring. Although I may have the time, and
No,
maybe it will be on the road again. That one is a 1981 Jeep CJ7. So
oh,
that's a fun car.
okay.
That's for fun,
Oh,
and I need, if I
yeah.
want to register that as a classic car, I need to have 2 other cars
Uh-huh.
because I can't use that as my backup.
Okay.
So that one, if I and classic car insurance is very cheap. It's $100, sometimes less, for to register that and to have that as a classic car. Um, my other 2 cars are the minivan that I only bought a year ago. Less than? No, I'm
Okay.
sorry. It's just over a year ago. It was a year ago in the fall. Um, and let's see, it came up quickly. I said, yeah, I need it. I didn't, and they said, well, there's this dent on the hood, or there's this like spot of rust where we can, and I said, I don't give a shit what it looks like.
Yeah.
I I needed
Just
I
give me
needed
it.
to
Just
get rid
give me
of
that.
a station wagon that a friend of mine had given me. So I got the minivan,
Yeah.
and they warned me about one thing on the hood. It turns out that every corner all around it has a dent in it. There are dents all 360.
Oh,
Every angle there's a dent. You can, from any angle.
how'd you do that? How has it got so many
I
dents?
didn't do it. That's how I got it. I think one thing actually did happen, like in a parking lot afterwards, because it looks like somebody sideswiped me, and and one of my
Ah,
friends said, "Was that there when you got it?" And then he said he didn't think it was, and then I said, "No, you're right. I don't think it was, but I didn't realize that it wasn't there when I got it." So I have a beat up 1997 uh, Dodge Grand Caravan, silver, like
ah,
every other minivan out there. But it's good for carrying equipment around and getting around. I can
yeah.
take out a seat. I can carry seamless and stands, and I forgot what they even call these. The big flat reflectors. They call them like they're not disposable, but they're expendable reflectors. I can carry all of that in my minivan, so it's good for that. If I want to put the seats in, I can fit at least 6 other people, so 7 people, at least 7 people.
That's not bad.
Uh,
Ooh,
so if I
yeah.
want to throw some models and makeup artists and stylists in there, um, I could fit them all in. I tried that once in my station wagon, and luckily, well, it didn't matter because the station wagon actually broke on the way to the shoot, and I had to switch cars, which is one of the reasons I have a backup car. But the other one is a Dodge. No, a Ford. I'm sorry, it's in my only Ford again. A Ford Taurus, a '99. No, sorry, '98. A
Ah,
1998 Ford Taurus. No, it's a '99. The reason I'm having trouble remembering is because they were similar. The one was a station wagon. One that's gone. That's a pile. That's a piece of rectangular crushed metal now. That was a '98,
yeah.
and the '99 Ford Taurus is a passenger thing with a console in the middle. Um, and
Okay.
do you want to hear the this beach story with the two Ford Tauruses?
You know I do.
So this was set up by the stylist, and it was for a wedding gown designer, and she wanted to shoot on the
Okay.
beach, and the stylist and the makeup artist I already knew, and the makeup artist got the models, and she was going to get two models, and then so I take the station wagon, uh, and it's already crowded. It's going to be a stylist, a makeup artist, two models, and myself. So that means three people in the back,
Yeah.
one person next to me. The tallest
Uh-huh.
of those people was the makeup artist. So I'm in the front. The makeup artist is in the front. In the back, two
Okay.
models and the stylist. And I get to Manhattan, and three models show up.
Uh-oh.
So we're like, okay, I guess we can fit you all. So we fit them all in, and then we get to the stylist in Brooklyn, and luckily she's tiny. Um, but she's not as small as one of the models. So the station wagon had a little pull-out seat in the middle. So it actually had another seat belt,
Yeah.
which made it legal. So a little thing that you would rest your arm on pulled down and made the front seat a bench seat. So we put one of the models there. So now she's
Yeah.
in between me and the makeup artist. And we get we're in Brooklyn. For those of you who know, the entrance to the Jackie Robinson Parkway, we're making a turn off Atlantic Avenue. We're just about to get on the Parkway, and people start shouting at me, and they're like, "Hey, man, you're leaking something! You're leaking something!" And it turns out that um, the main seal that holds all the oil between the oil and the transmission is just
Uh-oh.
blown. And I drive around, and I drop the car into a mechanic, and we call an Uber,
Yeah.
and I say, well, I have another car at home. So we all get the Uber. I leave the car, we take the equipment, we put it all in the Uber, we get to my house, and now we're all going to try and cram into a car that just has a console. And we do it.
Uh-oh.
It's still the makeup artist and I are just as comfortable. Um, and we're in the front, but now the model who was in the middle has to go in the back, and four of them have to squeeze into the back, and we do it, and we fit everything in the trunk, and we get to the beach, and we're not even going to the close beach. We're going out to Robert Moses State Park, because at the time they had
Yeah.
a nude beach there, which we didn't need to change on the beach or anything. But if you're at the nude beach, less people. Somebody's always going to come up and be like, "Oh, is she famous? Is what? Why are you shooting this? Who's this for?" That's always going to happen. But on the nude beach,
Yeah.
it'll be like one person. On the regular beach, it's going to be 10 people. Um,
Yeah.
so we do the shoot. Everything works out, and luckily some of the people knew other people that would come and pick them up. So we didn't even have to all get home. We,
Yeah.
we all got there in the passenger seat car. So but now I have the minivan, but my backup is still that Ford Taurus, and hopefully I never have to cram that many people in again.
What one message, Frank, would you give to someone who wants to start photography? I know the time is hard right now for you to be able to start photography with everything going on, but what would you say to someone who wants to start photography now? What can you see or help them with?
I think the advice. I think actually now you're lucky that everything is digital. When this was film, all
Yep.
the labs might be closed, or it wouldn't be
Yeah.
as
True.
easy to do all that. So I think it's a good time. It's a good time to learn software. It's a good time.
Yeah.
Adobe gave away, or they're giving away 3 months or 2 months or whatever of free Photoshop.
Yeah.
So it's a good time
Yeah.
to play with all that. And
You got
Yeah,
Infinity,
and
you've
it's a
got
good time to
yes.
experiment and shoot. There's a lot of, when you are a photographer, whether it's in your dungeon working, even if you produce shoots, it's then. But there's a lot of alone time, so go out and shoot. There's plenty of stuff
Yeah,
to shoot, and there's plenty of stuff to
that's
shoot at
true.
home and in your backyard and play with, and you
Yeah.
can. I don't know if you guys know photographer Michelle Leroy. Michelle.
Yeah, I've
So
heard of her
he's
before.
taken up.
Yeah,
There's a challenge online of doing album covers. Um,
yeah,
but I follow Michelle on Instagram. So he's, as far as I can see, he's doing the best job. He's got his kids involved, and he's doing album covers. So he's imitating. So it's a great time to imitate other photographers, other things that you've seen. I would always do that in my lighting classes and in my even in the pre-college classes at FIT. We'd imitate some other people's images, and it's always surprising because there were things that I take for granted when we don't do that. I remember one of the times one of the students said, "Why are we shooting this at f8? Why aren't we shooting more open?" And I'm saying, did you look at the image we're trying to emulate? This is a close-up portrait. There's no way this is shot at f2.8 or f4 or even f5.6. This is f8 or f11. And at the head size that we're at, long lens or short lens, the nose is only slightly out, the ears are only slightly out. This is at least f8. Look at your images. We need to get that, and a lot of those classes are done with hot lights. So to get that, we need to push the ISO up or shoot at a slower shutter speed.
yeah,
And they were used to doing a lot of stuff wide open because they didn't want to shoot on a tripod and they didn't want to push their ISOs up too
yep,
much. And we're going, no, well, these are the compromises we have to make if we want to emulate this image. So all of that stuff is good practice. It's a good time to make your assistant cards because eventually this will all get back and people will need assistance. It's a good time to make the connections. And I can't stress more that this is what I tell every student this: get on LinkedIn. Just get on LinkedIn, and
yeah.
LinkedIn
That's how I found
link in
Frank.
with everybody. If I'm going to go see a speaker or go even to a portfolio review, if I'm going to get my work reviewed, I'll connect with those
Yeah,
people before I even see them. And I'll be,
yeah,
if I
it's
want to put
true.
in a note, hey, I see you're a reviewer. I'm hoping to meet you at the ASMP commercial portfolio review next week, and and usually they will accept that invitation. And
Yeah, it's true.
even if it's not a direct thing, even if they never hire me or they never connect me with anything, even just being known as a connector. I've had friends call me and say, hey, how do you know
Yeah,
these four people at this company I'm interviewing with? And I'll tell them the truth. I'll be like,
yeah,
well, I only know one of them, but the other three I'm just connected on LinkedIn. But I'll still give an introduction to all four. If they connected with
yeah.
me on LinkedIn, yeah, they
That's what I
still
do.
kind of
Yeah,
know me. And being connected to all those people is a great way to get their information, have an email list of people. And even when you stop assisting, even or wind down your assisting, um, those are people you now have their emails. You can now promote to them.
yeah,
You can put up stuff on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is also a much easier way to connect. If you meet somebody online or in person, and you say, "Hey, you want to be Facebook friends, or you want to do Instagram?" Facebook means like, "Hey, you want to go snowboarding with
yeah,
me?" It's kind of weird. Um, Instagram, it's hard to keep the connection. Who is this person again? And a lot of people don't even have their real names there, and you're not going to get their email. You're
that's
just going to
true.
have their Instagram thing, so you can't really promote to them. Um,
Yeah.
so I know a lot of people are now into Instagram, and I'm happy to connect on Instagram, but I'm more happy to connect on LinkedIn.
There
That's
you
yeah.
go. See? I love it. What's if there's one quote, Frank, that would represent you as a person and lets people know who you are as a person, what quote would you choose and why would you choose that particular quote?
Um, especially now, this was on my second or third version of my website when I used to build my websites myself. Um, and I
Yeah.
guess it needs a little explanation if you are not a fan, although I know he has a lot of fans. So I am a Kurt Vonnegut fan, and in the Sirens of
Okay.
Titan, there are these creatures that can only communicate. They only have two things to say. And one is I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, and the other is so glad you are, so glad you are, so glad you are, so glad you are. And I really think that's appropriate these days, right? So that would be my one of my favorite quotes is because he gets a lot of and so it goes things, which is a good quote.
Yeah.
But I like this a lot better, and I think it's important now because we're all alone, right? A lot of us are alone,
True.
or we're
That's
with
true.
people that we spend way too much time with even before this, right? So
Yep.
meeting those new people and acknowledging other people. So I think right now my favorite quote is I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here.
Fair enough. Okay. That's perfect. What makes you different from other photographers? What would you
Oh,
say makes you different from other
I think
photographers?
it took me a while to develop my own style and to really and I think that comes across in portfolio reviews. When I first used to go to portfolio
Yes.
reviews, I used to get all different opinions from everybody. And now it tends to be a lot of the same. A lot of people like they're all like, "Oh no, these are
Okay.
the best ones, and these are the favorite." And I get a lot more similar reviews now. So I think my
Okay.
style has just developed over years of doing it. And I know there are certain things that I like doing and certain things I'm drawn toward, but I still am always happy to
Yeah.
experiment. Um, but I think that there that when I say my vision or my look or what things look like, I think that is
Yeah.
something that's hard to put into words from the images, but it's something that's there and you can see in the images. So you might hate it or you might like it,
Mm.
but it's certainly my unique style. um, and I
Yeah.
think most of us just like the working with assistants thing. What makes me unique might not be my images, but it might be you like having a fun shoot and hanging out with me. We're all gonna do lunch, we're
Yeah.
all gonna have fun, and we're all gonna do some stuff that might require high intense situations. And if you want,
Yeah.
there's a reputation that fashion photographers have that they're high strung or just literally assholes. um, and somebody's always going to think you're an asshole. You could be the nicest guy in the world, somebody's going to think you're an asshole, right? um, but
It's true.
but I think the reputation of fashion photographers to totally just be assholes all the time, and they've even accepted it and embraced it. I think I'm one of the. Uh, I shouldn't say the few, but at least I'm not. I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I think I don't panic.
Yeah.
I'm easygoing, and if even in an intense situation where a lot of people might panic, I'm more the calming type. So. Yeah.
Cool. That's it. That's fair. Frank, finally, where can we find you on all your social media platforms?
So I think I'm pretty easy to find. So it's mostly just Frank Rocco.
Yep.
So on Instagram, it's Frank Rocco. On LinkedIn, it's Frank Rocco. On Facebook, it's Frank Rocco and Frank Rocco Photography.
Yep.
The only one that's different is Twitter, which is Frank Rocco Photo.
Okay, cool. Well, that's perfect. Frank, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Ask People podcast. You've been amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, no, you're most welcome. And guys, I want to say thank you so much for listening to the Ask People podcast. And please remember to subscribe to Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and any platform that you prefer to listen to. Also, please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And remember, you can donate to the Ask People podcast to keep us interviewing people like Frank, which is simple. All you need to do is go to the PayPal account and type in paypal.me/Us People Podcast. Thank you for listening. Stay positive, stay happy, and continue to be kind to one another.